We're going to start in seated posture today. So nice and easy. You can choose to sit and straddle the bolster in any way that you wish, or you can come to the block, or you can come to the floor. Whatever feels good. Going to cross their heels in to try and get the knees lower than these hip bones, the top of the hip bones. So sometimes lifting the floor up means the knees drop down a little bit easier angles on ankles and knees. That was a bad sentence to try and put out. Sit up nice and tall, just have a little wriggle around. There's nothing wrong with crossing the ankles. It just means that it's unlikely that you'll get your legs down low or less slightly. And I'm going to wriggle the neck out a little bit. And we're going to have a little bit of a neck stretch in this first phase. So I'm going to take a little breath and allow my head to drop over to the right shoulder. I'm going to take the right arm up, place my hand just towards my ear so I can then start to take the weight of my arm. But before I do, you'll notice at this point your shoulder is kind of lifted. So see if you can let that drop down to get as much gap between your shoulder and your ear. Then start to let the weight of your arm be taken by your neck. Just breathe nice and easily here. You might find that the stretch in the neck is in different places at different times in our lives. Depends a little bit on what you've been doing, where you've been carrying your attention. And we're going to release gently. And just let the head come back to a central position. And at this point, you can probably feel quite a big difference between one side of the neck and the other. It starts to even out a little bit, kind of dissipates slowly over a few breaths. I'll let the head hang over to the left. And immediately you might notice some differences between where you get to where you came from. We'll take the left arm up, take that hand, again drop the shoulder down, make some space, and then allow the weight of the arm to gradually take into the neck. And we'll release again. Let the head slowly come back and see how that feels. I'll bring the chin down in towards the chest, so we're going to stretch out the back of the neck. Try and let those shoulders relax and soften. So bring the chin forward so those shoulder blades tend to lift just a little bit. So just waiting for them to settle back down. And then we'll take some half circles. So we're going to draw the chin over towards the right shoulder, lifting up, looking out to the side. And then as I exhale, I'll slowly ride that chin back down to the center. And inhale across to the other side. And very gently, very conscious of moving with my breath slowly. Connecting the movement with my breath, slowing my mind down as I focus just on the task in hand. Inquiring mind to see how the neck feels. Come to the left side for the last time and then just simply bring the head to look straight forwards. Oh, going to move from here, so untangle the legs, give them a little bit of a stretch out. And then we'll come onto all fours. I'm going to have that bolster at the front of the mat. I'm going to move the block out to the side. Coming onto all fours. I'm going to take a little breath and just stretch right leg back. Then bring the knee through. Allow myself to tuck the toes on the left foot and slide that as far away as I can, keeping the front knee relatively over the ankle. And then letting the knee down very gently. I'm going to move my right foot just half an inch or an inch out to the side, a little bit further than it would have normally landed. And then bring the forearms onto the front thigh and lift myself up. I'm going to take a few breaths here with the knee directly over the ankle. I want the hip flexor on the opposite leg, the left leg behind me, to have a chance with its groin side muscles to kind of open up and relax into the pose a bit. And then once we've done that, we'll take it a little deeper. Okay, I'm going to start to let that front knee sink a little further forwards. And in my body, that really is like a quarter of an inch, a few millimeters, not a great deal. Some people are going to get a lot further just because of their joint structures and the length of the muscles, how much motion they've got through their range of the joints, etc. So they might be considerably further forward. If you're in a position where your knee has moved past your toes, I would suggest that you need to move the back leg a bit further away. Bring yourself up a little higher. Now, bringing the forearms onto this front thigh can be quite strong. There's a lot of weight bearing down through the legs. So if you start to get a little bit tired, anxious about that, you can just bring the fingertips down to the floor to take a little bit more weight out of the body. And there's nothing wrong with you moving backwards and forwards from that position as many times as you need. You might even find that you are able to release your knee a little bit further forwards with the fingers down on the ground. So we can move out of that. Just bringing ourselves back into that tabletop position. A certain amount of, as they say, manhandling required to move the limbs around. You could have moved into down dog if you wanted to do something a bit more energetic. We'll bring the left leg, we'll stretch that out towards the back of the mat. And then we'll draw the knee in and bring the foot through to the front of the mat. Remember to let it wriggle out a little bit further than normal. Knee over the ankle. You're going to tuck the toes on the right foot. Slide that leg as far back as you can. And then let your knee down softly. You can take a little time to just adjust and get your kneecap in a nice comfy place. If you need to, you can actually fold the mat over to give yourself double thickness. So your knee doesn't feel like it's getting quite such a punishment for just being a knee, doing its job. Bring the forearms back onto that front thigh again with the knee over the ankle. So this is our starting position. We're very aware that the force line is down through the shin, directly from the knee, along the shin, down into the heel. Foot kind of wobbles around a little bit, or in my case, quite a lot. I've got a high arch. I don't know if that makes a big difference, but it does seem to do a lot more activity going on through that foot to hold myself in place than you'd think. Let's start to lean forwards again. Just taking out those few millimeters, with the option of bringing the fingertips down onto the floor if that feels more comfortable, or if you get tired, you can readjust the feet around a little bit till you feel super comfy. Head position is of choice. Just try to let the shoulders relax a little bit down if you've brought your fingers to the floor. If you struggle to reach the floor, and that's why you're not taking that opportunity, bricks, if you had them, would have been useful underneath the hands, again, just lifting the floor up. Probably not much use me telling you that 30 seconds before we move out of the pose. Maybe 30 seconds before we got into it would have been more useful. I'm going to slowly move out of this. Again, you can manhandle yourself out, or person handle yourself if you want to be more gender neutral. I'm going to bring the bolster a little bit closer to hand, and I'm going to start with a slightly narrower grip in my hands. I tend to use the whole of the mat when I'm in tabletop. So my arms are always a little bit wider than my shoulders. So I'm bringing them a little bit more underneath, so that when I bring my right foot through, there's enough space for my foot to be on the mat. And then I can turn the toes out a comfy distance to the side. I'm still going to tuck the toe on the back foot and lengthen that out as far as I can, and then roll the bolster a little bit further underneath me so I can bring my forearms and elbows down into place. Now, quite often when we are just untucking the back toes, so it's a little more comfortable on the knee. Right leg is just kind of hanging out to the side and rolling on to the side of the foot a little bit, trying to let the hips down, keeping the spine nice and long. To talk about the elbows a little bit, they're pretty much underneath my shoulders. I have my palms touching, so there's kind of a little bit of a triangle going on. When we take lizard pose in hatha, and especially vinyasa classes, we would be bringing the forearms into a parallel position with the hands down into the floor, because we want to get purchase. This is about resting, so I can even let the body sink down through the shoulders. I'm definitely aware that both of my hips are working to a greater level than the previous pose. I would personally suggest, if you're practicing by yourself, that you would always do the high flying dragon, the one we did first, before you do the low flying dragon, the one we're doing now. Okay, I'm going to move back out again. It won't take quite so long in the pose. It's an accumulation of effort through the two that we're utilizing. And then again, just setting the hands in the right place. Left leg comes through, on the mat, heel on the mat, just for a little bit of grip. Toes comfortable, doesn't have to be the same angle, just make sure you feel happy. Back foot, you can tuck it under and then lengthen away, or just shimmy the leg out towards the back. Bring your bolster back in. Allow yourself to ease down. Now, sometimes I find that as my hips open, I'm actually able to roll the bolster forwards a little bit and get a little closer to the ground because I can get my body to be a bit longer and flatter. So again, this is about making the practice your own and adapting to your props, your body on that particular day. Remember to let the chest sink down through the shoulders. The shoulders are away from the ears, preferably. Head position really is of choice. Theoretically, holding the neck in line with the spine is easier on the muscles. But if your habitual posture is with the head forwards, you might find dropping the head a little bit easier. So trust your instincts on that. Okay, we'll take a little breath and come out of here, and we'll come into the twisted version of dragon. So moving the bolster out of harm's way, but not so far that I can't catch it. Another day. Back onto all fours. Let's stretch that right leg out. Take it out to the outside again. Spin the heel in and the toes out. Now I'm going to take my left hand forward. It's about a hand's distance from my body is about the right amount. Back leg, I'm just going to ease that back a little bit further. Bootlace is down. It's more comfortable for my knee. More than welcome to have it the other way if that feels good to you. Letting the knee hang out to the side, I'm going to come into the twist. So it's going to open the body up to the side. I'm going to use the hand very lightly on the leg to help encourage it out to the side. Now, normally we would lift the body up in a hatha class, but I'm going to try and let my hips sink down. I'm going to keep my shoulders strong, but actually let the chest and the body sink into that shoulder a little bit. So the shoulder, my arm, top of my arm, comes sort of closer in towards my body. I can feel my shoulder blade sliding a little bit more in towards the spine area, even though I've got the twist going on. And that does feel awkwardly unnatural in that shoulder. I spend so much time in yoga practice trying to lengthen, stabilize the shoulders. This practice will go the other way. Use all of its range of movement in as many poses as possible. We'll come back onto all fours. Stretch out that left leg. Take the foot out wide. Slide the back foot or shimmy. Take the right hand forwards a little bit and out to the side. As the knee hangs out, take that little twist. And then start to let the shoulder right in, so shoulder blade towards the spine, still having the twist. And just letting the shoulder work in this different way, it's creating a whole set of neural pathway habits that clearly don't get used all week because it's always an interesting experience. you'll move out of there. I'm going to come back into all fours and come into deer pose. Use the block. I'm going to turn side on, but you could be facing the front of the mat. I'm on all fours, and if I sat back down, the block is actually underneath my ankles. It's kind of underneath where my sitting bones are going to be. My knees are together. Take a little breath. Swing the feet over to my right and sit gently back. So both knees are on the ground. I'm trying to get both sitting bones on the ground. I'm going to slide the right leg out a little bit to the side. So it's kind of pointing off in that direction a little bit now, so that my toes are pointing directly behind me rather than out to the side, which is where they were when I first sat down. So it's a nice, easy way to come into the pose. And the objective is to get these two hip points here that we discussed earlier on as in line with each other in this direction as possible. Now, to facilitate that, we can just use the hand to press in just a little bit, to drop the hip down, to encourage it to move that way. And one of the things that you'll notice as you do that is that the spine feels a lot more comfortable the closer your pelvis gets into that neutral position. Okay, to come out of that, just lean forwards. Bring the knees back together. So we're in that same starting position. Let the feet go out to the left side. Get back gently into our block. Once you've landed, we're going to adjust the back foot, take the knee out to the side a little bit so we can sink two buttocks onto the block. Again, use the hand a little bit. So if you are struggling because you want to press your hands into the floor, but the floor is too far away, use your bolster or your block underneath or a brick to lift the floor up a little bit, make it easier. Not a problem. There's a lot of twists and rotations going through the hips. It's opening in the knees and the ankles, even the toes to some degree. There's a lot of work going on in a pose which looks like you are just sitting down. And we probably can conceptually understand that sometimes it's difficult to let the tension out of your shoulders. The hip muscles are 5 times stronger. So potentially 5 times more difficult, 5 times more the challenge. Maybe 5 times more rewarding if you can let them ease off. You'll find it easier in certain directions than others. That's going to be different person to person. We're ready to move from here. I'll let the legs hang out to the side. Just moving around gently. I'm going to come into caterpillar pose. So I'm going to take myself off of the block. Just put that out to the side. Lengthen the legs out. Now you could, if you wanted to, actually roll that bolster underneath the back of the knees. I'm going to have my legs flat to the floor. They're about hip distance apart. I'm going to spend a little time wriggling out, getting the flesh to move around on those sitting bones. And then caterpillar pose, not quite such a forward fold, but we're going to drop the chin in towards the chest and then let the chest sink down towards the floor, towards the groin rather than the knees. And we'll slowly let the pelvis tilt backwards a little bit. So we've got very rounded upper back, very rounded mid back, and a rounded tailbone as well. Where it feels like the top of your pelvis is closer to the back of the mat than the front of your tailbone. Now, you want to be in a position where you don't feel like you're actually falling back, but lowering down. There is a kind of a sweet hovering spot between those two, just like there is in terms of folding too far forwards or further than you need to. So we get a little bit used to clamping down on the diaphragm, breathing into the back of the shoulders a little more, letting the shoulders roll around. Don't hold this for too long. Okay, just time to put the hands to the floor and lift back up again. We're going to take the feet out as wide apart as you can, comfortably. And let yourself have a little wriggle so that you can get a little more onto the front edge of the sitting bones. And we're going to take a straddle, but we're going to adopt it a little bit. I'm going to take the left foot and bring the heel in towards my groin. Then I'm going to turn my chest towards my left knee, take my hands out and let myself roll out the hands as far as possible. Now, do take my left hand, which is towards the back of the mat, a little bit further out to the side. And then let myself sink in. And the work really is in the long leg, the groin, and the hip joint. We take the bend into this front leg. We move from the hamstrings pointing down towards the floor to rolling out a little bit, so they're turning in more into the center. It's a much easier position to fold down into. There's no way that I get this deep into the fold on the other side if a leg was lengthened out. And the fact that the sitting bones have kind of rolled off of the ground, I'm not particularly worried about. Just letting the hips sink down and release. Again, remembering what we discussed about shoulders. So if you are able to get your elbows down to the ground, you still let the chest sink. If you're higher up, you still let the shoulders sink around, drawing the shoulder blades a little closer towards the spine. Lift back up slowly. Leg back out nice and wide. Cross over to the second side. Take a little time just to let this leg kind of dissipate the stretch that's just been through, just like we did at the very beginning with the neck. Allow this leg to lengthen out as well. Get the blood flow back through the knee. And when you're ready, you're going to line your chest and your knee up as close as you can, and then walk through. So if you were higher, you would lean in and let the shoulders roll back a little bit so you can feel the shoulder blades coming together a little closer. Again, head position would be your choice. I tend to walk the back hand a little bit further out. Let myself come down. Again, might get to a different position on one side to the other. Slowly move out of this pose as well. Put the legs out again for the last sort of few seconds. Take the hands behind. And I'm going to move very slowly from here into Sphinx pose. So use the hands just to initiate the movement of the legs. Take the feet towards the back of the mat. Down onto my belly. And again, I'm going to use that little trick of bringing the hands together, interlacing the fingers, little finger tucks under. Elbows about the same distance as the shoulders and a little ahead. And then letting the shoulders sink, or the chest sink down through the gap. If you know that you like taking seal pose, I bring the hands to the floor and walking the hands in with straight arms until you get a higher degree of curve into the lower spine, then that's fine. We are ultimately trying to keep the hips on the ground. You have a certain type of spine to be able to do that, one with big gaps. This feels like you are getting more than enough compression, then this is the place you need to be. You can let your belly be very soft. Feel your breath low down in your diaphragm. Gentle pulsing through the body. Letting the big muscles in the glutes and upper back release, or lower back rather. Now bring ourselves down to the ground and hands underneath the chin, elbows out wide. We'll slide the feet back more in towards the center line. And take half frog, so drawing the left knee out to the side, 90 degrees to the body, letting the shin follow the line of the mat with the toes pointing out. Turning the head to the left if that feels easy. And then just letting that hip sink down to the floor. So again, working on letting the pelvis sink a little more into alignment with the mat below us. And that opens up your hip joint, but also is a lot of work through your SI joint, where your spine and your pelvis connect. The cartilage tissue there is getting a little bit of force, but controlled force applied. Now slowly bring that left foot back onto the mat. Slide the knee down towards the bottom of the mat until the legs line up again on the center line. And then slowly take the right leg out. Move the shin parallel, toes pointing out to the side again, head turns if it feels comfy. And another nice pose where you get time to reflect on whether one side of the body feels the same as the other. Perhaps if it feels different week to week. start to bring the leg back in. Wiggle out those hips a little. Going to make our way back up onto all fours. Just ease the hands down by the side of your body, towards the bottoms of the ribs, press into the ground, and we'll start off in hero's pose. So we're just going to let the knees come together, take the heels apart, find that block and slide it underneath so sitting bones find some traction. If you're able to get all the way down without the block, that's fine, that's one less move. So deeper stretch into the knee joints and the front of the quads. And depending on the shape of the arch of the foot, maybe a deeper stretch into there as well. Now, we won't stay in here for long. We're already lifting up. Moving the block out of the way. We're going to come into cat-cow. So we'll take the hands forwards, bring the knees underneath the hips, hip distance apart, boot laces down. Draw the chest forwards, tuck the tailbone up and the belly in. Now tilt the pelvis, let the spine ripple up towards the sky and separate the shoulders out as wide as you can. So press into the hands and the shins, drawing the belly in. Inhale, coming through. At the same time, have a look at your hands as you draw your chest forwards and get the biggest gap between your little finger and your thumb. Now allow yourself to exhale back up. Press those digits down into the ground and make use of them. Inhale, coming forwards. We'll start to draw the chest forwards. And as we ripple through the spine, we'll allow the bottom to sit back, press into the hands and push away from the front of the mat. Let the elbows come to the ground into a modified child's pose. Inhale, use the thighs to lift yourself back up with a round spine and then draw the chest forwards as you finish that breath in. Exhale, ripple through the spine and roll back again. It's a slow, long breath in. Lift up. I do appreciate that some of us are slower and longer in our breaths than others, but some of us have got further to move than others. So maybe the length of your breath and the size of your body is not proportional. Maybe that's absolutely nothing to do with it. Who knows? And this time we'll lift up onto all fours and come into a neutral spine. And tuck the toes underneath and lift ourselves into a down dog. Just let the heels settle towards the back of the mat for a moment. Let the shoulders open up and take the hips high, belly drawn in. We're just going to really use this as a transition to draw the right knee in towards the chest and bring the foot through between the hands. Then we're going to take the right hand forwards and lift it up into the twist. Still pressing out through the back heel to get a super straight back leg, the heel pointing towards the sky. Palm faces out to the side and open the chest as much as we can. We'll take one more breath, bring the hand back down outside of that foot and step ourselves back into our down dog. And again, bring the left knee in, bring it through. Take the left hand forwards and up. All the rotation you can. Press down from the floor. Draw the shoulder blades down towards the pelvis a little. Just a comfortable amount. Pressing out through the back leg. Make sure the big toe joint on the front foot stays firmly attached to the ground. It's easy to roll out onto the sides. Bring the hands down to the floor. Take a little breath. And we step ourselves back into that Final down dog. And we'll come forwards into a plank so we can bring the knees to the floor. Pivoting on the knees, we take the feet out to the side and let ourselves sit gently back down to the ground, taking the legs out in front. Move the block back underneath, a good measure, a little lift, and bring the feet together on the center line. Sitting up as tall as we can, we'll come into Janu Shishasana, drawing that right heel into the groin, pressing the sole of the foot into the inner thigh, the knee down to the floor. We're going to try and press that shin down, so pack it with a brick or a block or a cushion, whatever you need, if your knee doesn't get to the ground easily. Square the hip, little bend into the knee, and the foot is flexed back and up towards the sky. The hands come onto the shins, and we lift up. We're going to hinge over the hips, draw the chest forwards, seeing how close we can get those ribs and thighs to meet. Maybe the leg is flat, maybe the body is parallel to the floor, maybe neither of those. Doesn't matter as long as you can feel yourself stretching your chest forwards, rolling your shoulders back so you've got plenty of space around the neck for blood to flow. Drawing the belly in a little bit of pressure down into that front heel, down into the floor. Bring the hands onto the ground again and lift your way back up. Ready for the second side, and then the legs out first so you have some measure of where to go. Bending the left knee, squaring the hips. Pack the leg if you need to. Hands either side, little bend in the knee for prep. Toes up towards the sky. Now we will mention that big toe, little toe, about the same distance from the body. If you notice your foot is rolling out, then your thigh is probably rolling out with it. So just pay attention to that fact. If that's occurring in your body, let yourself lift up. Over the side. Don't have to get to the same place on both sides. It can be hugely different. Enjoy those oddities in your body that make us all different. They make you you. Like the picture on Instagram, it will get a little bit boring. Remember, the chest is lengthening forwards. There's space opening up in the spine. Muscles lengthening out. You feel everything growing. Okay, we put the hands to the floor again and let ourselves lift up. We'll take the legs out again and give them a little shake for all those ankles around a few times. And then I'm going to cross those heels back into the groin, just as I had at the very beginning of the class. If that doesn't work for you, you can cross at the shins, but have the legs a long way forwards. Sit up nice and tall, and we're going to roll over the heels. Take the hands forwards. Maybe you get to 45 degrees and you're up on your fingertips and your body is long and your shoulders are relaxed. Maybe you're able to come down lower and take the hands further forwards. Maybe those elbows come to the ground. Maybe your noggin touches the floor. Who knows? We'll walk the hands back in, draw the belly in a little bit, ease our way up. Lengthen the legs out. One leg goes out. Leg two goes out. Leg one comes back in. Leg two comes back in. And we have managed to negotiate crossing the legs the other way. It might fight different in the body. So again, just take a little time to lift yourself up. Check you're happy in your hips, knees, and ankles. And then allow yourself to lift up and over the heels. So you're literally pivoting your groin into the heels. It's as uncomfortable as it sounds. Allow yourself to ease forwards to wherever you get to in your body. Remember, you are doing yoga, you're being yoga, regardless of where you get to or what it looks like. It's not about where your body ends up, it's about your intention as you move into these things. And walk ourselves back out again. Just for fun, we're going to give ourselves a little bit of a shoulder stretch. So I'll roll over to the side and move my block out. Take my legs towards the back of the mat. Come down onto the old belly again. Feet together. Going to take the arms out wide, crucifix style, palms down, and lift up onto the fingertips. So my arms are away from the floor. I'm going to roll to my right side so it's easier to see. Bringing the left hand underneath the shoulder. I start to rotate my chest into a vertical line, lifting my left shoulder, walking that right hand out, and lengthening out through the ball joints of my feet a little bit, just a fraction. Face is pointing towards the side of the mat rather than looking down towards my toes. If that has happened, see if you can gently bring your head back again. The reason is that it actually rounds your shoulders and neck when you do that, and it puts extra strain into the fascia lines and actually impedes you a little bit. Okay, we'll let our chest come down to the floor, and as we do, we'll wriggle the fingers out on the right side so that that sense of feeling that might have lost comes back. Take the hands back underneath the shoulders as I move myself back into the center line of the mat. So now moved off. Take the left hand out onto the fingertips. Press into the right hand. Walk the left hand out as far as you can. The head comes to the floor and lengthen the legs away just a fraction. Again, I'm going to let the chest come down to the ground. Wriggle the fingers and bring the hands back underneath. I'm going to take Shavasana. So I'm just going to simply roll onto my spine. Even though my head may be at a different position to it normally being. So it might be at the front of the mat. The spine just wriggle itself out, wriggle the shoulders underneath, let the hands come out to the sides, and then when you feel ready, just slide the heels out to the corner edges of the mat. We've got about 5 minutes-ish. The end of our class, so we'll use at least 4 of those for this. Just let the legs roll open. Soften the jaw as you close your eyes and let everything sink. Time to start stretching those fingers and toes. Bring a little deeper. We're going through the wrists and the ankles. Allow yourself to have a stretch, and that can look like anything you want it to be. Whatever you need, just trust your instincts for where your body wants to go. And then slide the heels gently back in towards the body. Once they're closer in towards your body, you can draw your knees gently in towards the chest. That's the simplest of hugs. Rock on the spine. Make some circles with the knees in the air. Whatever feels good. We'll take a little breath from here and roll onto our right side and draw ourselves into a nice little ball. Press down into the ground for a few breaths. Just allow yourself to be aware of how the gravity feels different on your body, through the joints, through the tissues, through your breath. Press down into the floor to lift slowly back up as you exhale. Come into a posture that you find easy to sit in. The spine lengthen up a little bit. Already bring the hands in towards your heart. Take a deeper breath in as we close the eyes and let the chin drop softly towards the chest. As the belly draws into the spine and the bow forms, we seal our practice for the evening. The breath comes back into the body. Let the spine open up again. The head follows, and the eyes open up again. Namaste. Thank you very much for joining me on the mat this evening. Hope you enjoyed, and see you again soon. Have a lovely week.